Okay, I think we are live. Welcome, everyone. Happy Friday. How are you all doing today? We made it through the week, guys. Congratulations. I'm very excited for this weekend. And thank you guys for joining me for another edition of Pagan Happy Hour. I think this is our 13th episode, so lucky number 13. And if you are new here, I've been doing these every Friday at 5 p.m. Central, just as a way to connect with you all, to share a Friday afternoon beverage, and to chat about paganism, witchcraft, and spirituality. And these have been really fun, so feel free as I'm chatting, even though I do have a topic prepared for today, which is Imbolc, feel free to, type some questions, share your comments, and I'll be bringing in your thoughts and ideas into the conversation as we go along. So please let me know in the chat if you can hear and see me okay, just so I know that the technology is working fine. And also, please share where you're from and what you're drinking today. It's so fun seeing that so many of you guys aren't just from around the States, but international too. So today I'm actually having a margarita. I've been feeling a bit summery or spring-like, so I thought this would be a fun drink to make today. For margaritas, I tend to keep them pretty simple. Just lime juice, a little bit of honey, and then I actually use mezcal instead of tequila because I really like that smoky flavor, and then a bit of a salt rim. So super tasty. I love margaritas. But let me know where you guys are from and what you're drinking tonight. Let me check your comments here. Let's see. I see people are chiming in from England, and I think I saw someone from Australia, Canada. Let's see, I'm seeing California, Indiana, Poland. Let's see, Brazil, Oregon, Germany, Chile, Tennessee, England, Massachusetts, North Carolina, Belfast, Austria. Oh, wow, this is so fun. So again, thank you guys so much for joining me. I really enjoy these live chats. And today we are going to be talking about the pagan holiday known as Imbolc. And I'll be sharing with you what Imbolc is, what it was kind of historically. We'll be talking about how our pagan ancestors might have celebrated this time of year, how those celebrations might change based on where you happen to be living. We'll be talking about some kind of modern versions of Imbolc, and then I'll dive into a few different ways that you can celebrate Imbolc this year. And if you're unfamiliar, Imbolc is usually on February 2nd, so it's coming up soon. I believe it's on Tuesday. So I wanted to do this episode so we could chat a bit about this pagan holiday, and it is one of the more lesser known holidays, so I thought it would be a good one to cover. Now, I have done a few previous videos about Imbolc, I think a year ago and then the previous year, so I did link those two Imbolc videos that you can check out later if you want. One is how to set up a Imbolc altar, and then the other one is kind of a general video about the history of Imbolc. But checking your comments here, let's see. I see Whispering Wild says, Imbolc is also my wedding anniversary. Oh my God, that's so fun. That's such a great date for a wedding anniversary. Megan is saying Imbolc is one of my favorites. That's wonderful to hear. And so Imbolc is predominantly a Celtic pagan holiday. So even if you're pagan, you might want to celebrate Imbolc, or maybe you don't. And either way is totally fine. Even if you're not fully part of the Celtic pagan path, you can still celebrate Imbolc if you feel that it resonates with you. And we'll be going over kind of what Imbolc represents and what it means. But because it's a Celtic pagan holiday, it's one of the traditional 4 Gaelic festivals. So the other Gaelic festivals are, Lunasad, Beltane, and Samhain, and then Imbolc. So you have those 4 Gaelic festivals. And if you are familiar with Wicca, you might have seen the Wiccan Wheel of the Year that has 8 pagan holidays on it. So how that kind of came to be is Gerald Gardner and some of the earlier founders of Wicca took these ancient Gaelic Celtic festivals, those 4 holidays, and then they also combined it with holidays that were celebrated from an even older time period, that being the solstices and the equinoxes. So we have 2 solstices, 2 equinoxes, then you have the 4 Gaelic holidays. That equals 8 holidays in total, all neatly distributed along the kind of 12-month Wheel of the Year cycle. And while we barely know anything about how the solstices and the equinoxes were celebrated, we do know a bit more about the 4 traditional Gaelic festivals. And that's because when you think about the solstices and the equinoxes from a Celtic perspective, the builders of Stonehenge, for example, or Newgrange did kind of orient their construction and their temples towards the solstices and the equinoxes. So we know that those days were likely very important for the ancient Britons and the ancient Celts, but we don't really know anything beyond that. And the Celts were not the only ones to recognize and celebrate the solstices and the equinoxes. I mean, those are dates that have been celebrated across pagan cultures throughout the world. But today we are just going to be talking about Imbolc, which is coming up on February 2nd. So let me know if you have any questions about that or how that Wheel of the Year is traditionally formulated. So not all Celtic pagans would celebrate necessarily all 8 holidays. They might just pick the traditional 4. So it's really up to you. And if you are a Norse pagan, some Norse pagans celebrate some of those holidays, but not others. For example, Yule would definitely be one of the traditional 8 holidays that a Norse pagan would celebrate, but they might not celebrate Imbolc, for example. So there's no kind of clearly defined rules here on which holidays you should or should not celebrate based on which particular pagan path you follow. It's really kind of up to you. Vanessa has a great question here I see in the comments about the Southern Hemisphere and should you reverse the wheel or stick to the traditional dates. So in the Southern Hemisphere, I would not stick to the traditional dates. So February 2nd, you would not be celebrating Imbolc. I believe that would be, let's see, would that be Mabon? I'm thinking trying backwards here. Help me out if I got that one wrong. but yeah, because for me and how I view paganism, it's meant to be more closely tied towards the nature specifically around you. So I would stick to what is the natural world look like around me. So if it's not starting to warm up, not starting to get those first indicators of spring, then you probably wouldn't be necessarily celebrating Imbolc. And I see a few of you guys are correcting me there. It's Lunasad, not Mabon for the Southern Hemisphere. Thank you guys for correcting me there. Let's see, Amy has a good question as well. She is asking, I'm trying to figure out how to celebrate in a tiny apartment without any altar space. Great question. I also live in an apartment, and I currently use a bookshelf, kind of more my living room area where I put some of my altar items. But if I'm doing a ritual and I need more space, I'll actually pull out some of the items that I need, my candles, incense, statues, and a lot of times I actually use my desk right behind me. So I'll pull my desk out into the middle of the room, lay everything out for the ritual or for the meditation or the spell, and then I put it all back. So if you do live in a small space and it's not very feasible for you to have a permanent altar space, that's totally fine. Just use a coffee table or, a desk or anything really, or even I've used the floor before. Honestly, I've set up for ritual on a floor. So really just use the space you have, don't worry about it. The gods don't care if you have a fancy altar table or not. They just care that you're trying to build that connection. Yeah, I see Graves here is mentioning in the comments, when I lived in an apartment, I'd set up the altar for rituals and then put it away after. Yeah, I've done that plenty of times. So yeah, there's lots of things you can do. I do know they sell like these little like travel altars if you want something like that. But also another option is performing ritual outside. If you can find a kind of a more private area, maybe in the woods near where you live, bringing those ritual items to that area to do the ritual, even better, in my opinion, than doing it inside an apartment or a house. Let's see. Great comments here about how you guys have kind of used different spots in your apartment, in your house. I'm glad to hear I'm not the only one who has done a ritual on my floor from time to time. So that's great. Yeah, so back to kind of Imbolc. Now, a lot of the holidays tend to be associated with certain deities more than others, and that's especially true for Imbolc, which is traditionally connected with the Celtic fire goddess called Bridget. And it's also one of these really interesting examples of how the Christian church kind of took and co-opted pagan beliefs, because Bridget is actually a canonized saint in Christianity. So previously she was a Celtic goddess of fire and the hearth. And then, because she was worshipped really by the people in the area, and the church wasn't able to prevent people from going to her, for asking her for assistance, from working with her. So once they realized they couldn't prevent people, they just decided to make her a saint. So it's one of those very clear examples of how the Christian church kind of co-opts certain pagan deities, certain pagan locations, pagan practices. So you have Saint Bridget, and there's even something you can make called a Saint Bridget's cross, or a Bridget's cross, which is an equilateral cross. And that's another great kind of fun craft you can do for Imbolc to honor the Celtic goddess Bridget. In my video that I have linked down below on how to set up an altar for Imbolc, I do show you how to make a Bridget's cross out of pipe cleaners. So you can check that out later if you're curious. But let me check your comments here. Okay. Sorry, I got a lot of salt in that sip. Dylan has an interesting comment. He says, in voodoo, she is now called Madame Bridget, a death goddess and husband to Baron Samedi. That's really interesting. I didn't know that. Let's see. Someone's asking, do you connect any particular tarot cards with Imbolc? Yes, I do. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, so some great comments there. Now, Bridget was honored by the Celtic pagans in a number of different ways. Feasting and having big feasts with the community was part of Imbolc celebrations traditionally, and that's something that's very true for all of the traditional Celtic holidays and festivities. So feasting, going to her sacred spaces, especially sacred wells, were traditionally associated with Bridget. I believe if you go to Ireland nowadays, there is a sacred well that you can visit that is still connected with Bridget, but it's now part of a church. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I could be wrong on that. Yeah, so there's lots of things people used to do. She's even tied towards divination because she's a fire goddess. Possibly that divination was more kind of done with fire or staring into the flames. Divination is something tied to many different Celtic holidays, especially Samhain and Beltane as well. Bridget is also tied to kind of like purification and fire. And so candles in general and candlelight are something that is associated with Imbolc and this particular holiday. And that's because when we think of fire, we can also connect it to the sun. And the primary concept around Imbolc is this is when we're just starting to notice some subtle indicators that spring is coming. So we're starting to notice that the sun is gaining in strength. We're starting to notice that the days are in fact getting a little bit longer. So really any type of fire, hearth, bonfire, candles, those are all great symbols of both Bridget, but also predominantly what this holiday represents. And let me check your comments here real quick before I move on. Let's see. I'm just checking real quick. Let's see. Okay. Dylan has a comment here saying many fire gods are often considered to be divinatory gods. For example, Prometheus was a god of prophecy. Yeah, you know, that is a really interesting point. What is that connection between fire and divination? I mean, staring into the flames and kind of quieting your mind and seeing what images, seeing what sounds arise, that is definitely a divination method, but maybe there's something kind of deeper, more visceral to it, perhaps. And one of the things that I think is really neat about Imbolc is to put yourself in the shoes of our pagan ancestors, especially in places that, you know, are in colder or northern climates, right? And thinking about what this time of year would represent to them. Because this is the end of winter, right? This is like early February. So this is a time where it's still bitterly cold. And it's a time where traditionally your food stores would be running low and you'd be wondering, can I survive before, or am I going to die before the new crops come in? So I imagine that traditionally there was a lot of anxiety for our ancestors or for anyone who, like, back in the day lived in a more northern climate where, you know, if you didn't have enough food to tide you over the last few months, then that was it. So the idea of celebrating light, celebrating the sun and the return of these longer days, meticulously looking for those earliest signs of spring as really a hope that, okay, we're going to make it. We're going to make it through this last stage of winter. We can do it. We're almost there. We just got to keep holding on. I think it would have been a really profound experience, very stressful, but also kind of really beautiful, trying to find those subtle changes in the season to indicate that spring could be around the corner. Also, traditionally, this is when lambs give birth. So you'll see a lot of Imbolc symbolism tied towards lambs or lambs giving birth. Again, that kind of being a renewal symbol or a symbol of hope. If the lambs are giving birth, then they know for sure spring is around the corner. So it is kind of this hopeful time, in my opinion. And because of that, and thinking about this time of year and how our ancestors would have celebrated it, I think it does kind of, at least for me, make me feel a bit of gratitude for the fact that, you know, I'm not going to go hungry, that we have so much food and warmth available in the modern day. Let me see here. Yeah, thank you guys for your comments. Let's see. Sarah mentions the term Imbolc can mean in the belly, which literally means like pregnant livestock. And then it's when country folk would check their livestock that was bred in the fall to see if they were going to have spring babies. Yeah, you know, that's a great point. Yeah, so it is kind of this fertility festival in a way. But the main fertility festival is much later on when you get to Ostara and Beltane, which are also, you know, not too far away. But another thing I want to bring up too is Imbolc is going to be different everywhere. And we kind of talked about that a little bit for Southern Hemisphere, where they wouldn't be celebrating Imbolc right now. They would be celebrating Lughnasadh. But even, you know, here in the Northern Hemisphere, there is so much variation. So previously, I had spent like the last 6 years in Chicago. And in Chicago, it's a dreadfully cold city in winter. And every Imbolc, I would like hope to see some early signs of spring. But really, I wouldn't see any like snowdrops, which is a flower traditionally associated with this holiday, or really much at all other than kind of dreary, cold snow. And this year is quite different because I moved to Texas. So I am starting to see some indicators of spring here, which has been really exciting. And the days here have already started to get a bit warmer. So I do feel like this climate, at least, is really kind of connecting more with what I thought Imbolc would be in terms of seeing those earliest signs of spring, because back when I was in Chicago, there was no way I wasn't going to see any signs of spring until maybe Ostara, if I was lucky. So when it comes to kind of understanding the symbolism of Imbolc, you don't have to work with the traditional symbols of snowdrops or, you know, put pictures of lambs on your altar if that's not reflective of where you currently live. Put representations that are reflective. So go on a walk, go on a hike, look at what is still there. You know, if you don't have any fresh greens because nothing's growing yet, go ahead and still get some like pine boughs or something like that that you can put on. So you're still able to recognize the fact that the sun's energy is returning in terms of the days getting longer, and you can do that by candlelight. But in terms of natural materials, just, you know, collect whatever natural materials are around where you're currently located. Because for me, the Wheel of the Year and pagan holidays are in a large part about connecting with the land energies where we live. So keep in mind that it's going to be different for all of us. You know, some people are living in tropical environments, you know, so Imbolc's going to look different for us all, and that's totally okay. But I just wanted to mention that. And I know several of you guys have already mentioned the movie Groundhog Day, so I think we should talk about that for a second. So for you guys that might be watching that aren't American, you might have not heard of Groundhog's Day. This is a really weird American holiday. It's not like a big holiday or anything. It's this kind of weird ritual that occurs in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, where they have a gopher. Is it a gopher? I think it's a gopher, right? And his name is Phil. His name is Punxsutawney Phil. And every year on Imbolc, so on February 2nd, the people of this small town in Pennsylvania take Punxsutawney Phil outside his cage, and everyone kind of gathers around, and they see if Puxatawny Phil sees his shadow or not. I don't know exactly how they determine if he sees his shadow or not. I guess if he gets like freaked out or something. But this seeing the shadow or not seeing the shadow indicates if we are going to have 6 more weeks of winter. So this is Groundhog's Day. Sorry, what was I saying earlier? So this is called Groundhog's Day. And I see some interesting comments because I don't know too much about Groundhog's Day and how it's traditionally celebrated in Pennsylvania. But Graves mentions how the cord is ritual as local wise men or important yokel diviner weather from the animal's favor. I'm not really sure what that means, but this is a type of divination to determine the weather based on the animal's behavior. I think that's what he's getting to there. Heidi is saying there's also Groundhog Day celebrations in Canada. So yeah, that's really neat. I didn't know they also did that in Canada. Abigail is saying, where I live in Texas, we have a gator instead of a groundhog. So that's neat that there are all these interesting variations. Barbara is saying, don't forget the top hats that are part of the ceremony. Yes, it's this really kind of like formal outfits that people wear. And they always report this in the news, if the groundhog saw his shadow or not. So it's kind of this really weird ritual, but you can kind of see how it is far removed from Imbolc, but still kind of maintains the core concept where we are including divination, which we know is something associated with the goddess Bridget. So we're trying to divine the future weather. And we're looking for the earliest signs of spring. So this divination method tells us if there is going to be a long winter or a short winter, or basically how quick spring is going to come. So it's a very weird holiday, but I do love how it's kind of this bizarre modern American interpretation of Imbolc. And there is the famous movie with Bill Murray that I enjoy. It's a great movie. I'd highly recommend it. I know a lot of people watch it every year on Groundhog's Day. So yeah, I thought I would mention that it's always fun to look around and see if there are modern variations on these ancient pagan holidays, because there are a lot of them. And I've done plenty of videos on pagan holidays on my channel. So I've, extensively gone into all the symbolism of something like Christmas and how that has pagan origins, or all the symbolism of Easter and how that has pagan origins. So I thought I would share that for especially all the non-Americans. You might be interested in that we do this weird thing called Groundhog's Day. But I think next we'll probably get into sharing a few ways to celebrate Imbolc. And if you have any ways that you like to celebrate Imbolc, feel free to, share in the comments as we're going along. Megan has a funny comment. She says, Christians get angry at us for working with multiple gods, and then they turn around and ask the wise groundhog to tell the future, LOL. Yeah, that's very funny. Marcel says, we check if bears see their shadow in some parts of Europe. That sounds interesting. I haven't heard that before. Let me see. Erica is asking, is Imbolc the same as Candlemas? Yes, it is. So that's the Christian holiday version of Imbolc. So they took the fire symbolism, the candle symbolism of the Celtic goddess Bridget, and then they made Bridget a saint, and instead of the Celtic goddess Bridget celebrating Imbolc, it's the Saint Bridget and celebrating Candlemas. So they kind of just transformed it into a Christian holiday, which is still celebrated in lots of churches. But yeah, that's a great question. So there's lots of things you can do to celebrate Imbolc. I did mention making a Bridget's cross, and you can definitely do that. That's a fun activity. Let's see. I think also just kind of going for a walk outside in nature or a hike is a super good thing to do for Imbolc, because it gives you that opportunity to connect in with this particular time of year and really trying to notice any subtle indicators you might see of the changing seasons. Whether you might see some early spring flowers perhaps, or maybe not, but maybe you're just noticing that the day is a little bit longer, or maybe you're hearing some bird calls. So simply going for a walk can be a really easy way to celebrate Imbolc. In terms of altar decoration, I always decorate with a lot of candles. That's probably the easiest thing to do, as Bridget is a goddess of fire. Also putting any symbols of early spring or just kind of imagery of early spring. So if you don't have any actual like flowers blooming, you can even print off just like pictures of like flowers or things that make you think of spring, and try and kind of use that intention, that energy to bring that spring warmth towards you. So that's, just really simple way to decorate your altar. Earlier, someone did ask about tarot cards associated with Imbolc, and I am someone who loves to put tarot cards on my altar, and I always change up which ones are currently on my altar, and I usually mix it up, based on the different holidays. So I did pick out a couple cards that I would maybe associate with Imbolc, and there's no rules here. So these are just cards that I picked, but you're welcome to, look through a tarot deck and find any cards that you feel really resonate with the meaning of this holiday. So I'll just show you a couple cards. So I picked three that to me kind of represent Imbolc. And I have, let's see, so I have the Star card, because with Imbolc, to me, it's kind of a holiday of hope. We've made it through the worst of the winter, and now we're looking towards spring. And the Star card is very much a card of hope, because it comes after the Tower. It's also a card of healing energy and guiding light. So I definitely like this one for Imbolc. And let's see, I also have the Empress here, which this is the deck that I created with my friend Jamie called the Key Tarot. So it's all kind of models from the tarot and the witchy community, and this is the one I modeled for, the Empress. And this is definitely a card I associate with Imbolc, but also the other kind of spring holidays such as Ostara or Beltane. With the Empress card, we're tying it into a lot of kind of fertility goddesses. And while Imbolc isn't quite Ostara or Beltane, right? But we are starting to think about that fertility, like earlier on when we were talking about the lambs being pregnant and giving birth in early spring. And the Empress is kind of a card about the fertility of the earth. And that's why it's tied to a lot of deities like Persephone, Demeter, Ceres, and Venus predominantly. So yeah, so the Empress is a good one, especially if you're wanting to kind of put your intention towards bringing in more spring energy. The Empress is a great one to put on your altar. And then lastly, kind of a wild card one, I picked Temperance for a few different reasons. Now, if you're familiar with the Rider-Waite version of Temperance, it does have daffodils in the background. And interestingly, when we did the photo shoot for our version of Temperance, there were yellow flowers in the background. So it kind of was just this like sign that like this is the spot we need to take the photo for Temperance. And of course, daffodils being an early spring flower, and Temperance being card 14, comes after card 13, the Death card. So if you think of the Death card as representing winter, then Temperance might represent the earliest stages of that spring renewal. And then you can even think of the word temperance and how we use it in a weather context, like it's temperate, the climate is temperate. So it's a bit more pleasant. And this card is all about balance. So we are coming out of the cold, cold winter, and we're starting to get a bit more balance. So those are the 3 cards that I like to connect with Imbolc. I do have, I think, lots of videos on my channel where I do connect tarot cards with different pagan holidays, so you can always check those out later if you're interested. But yeah, so tarot cards, divination, those are great things to be doing on Imbolc. And again, if you are interested in supporting Pagan Happy Hour and the work I do, then picking up a copy of my tarot deck is probably one of the best ways to do that. I do have the link down below if you don't yet have a copy. So tarot, definitely always a fun thing to do for the holidays, and picking out certain cards based on what you feel connect with the holiday is always a fun activity. And I did want to mention as well, I don't know what you guys are reading lately. Comment below what you guys are currently reading, but I just started this book, which is about tarot. This is 36 Secrets, a Decanic Journey Through the Minor Arcana of the Tarot by Susan Chang. She does the podcast Fortune's Wheelhouse, which is all about tarot. And this is specifically about the minor arcana. So when you look at the Wheel of the Year, you can divide the sky or the sections of the Wheel of the Year into 10 degrees. And then each of those 10 degrees is ruled by a decan. And this is all kind of very esoteric and complicated, but each minor arcana card has a decan, it has a planet, it has an astrological correspondence. And this is kind of a walk through the year, looking at all the different minor arcana cards and their decans. So it's like a super nerdy book for those of you that are interested in tarot, or especially wanting a deeper understanding of the minor arcana. So anyway, I thought I would just share this because I just started reading it and I'm really enjoying it because I am a total tarot nerd. So I do have the link down below if you'd like to support her and her new book. And I also wanted to talk about ritual too, because there are plenty of like easy rituals involving intention and things like that that you can do. And this year for Imbolc, so actually on Imbolc, which is going to be Tuesday, I'm going to be joining Jamie, who is the co-creator of the Key Tarot deck. She is running a special Imbolc ritual. So this will be live through like Zoom, and we'll be doing a ritual together. And I'll also be diving more into the history of Imbolc. So if you are interested in joining us for that, if that's something you'd like to do, I do have the link down below. She is charging, I think, a little bit. I think it's like $11 for joining the live ritual. And I believe it's only this specific one is only open to women. But if that is something you're interested in, I do have that link down below if you want to join me and her for a live ritual this Tuesday. But yeah, so just wanted to share those things. There's so many great ways to celebrate Imbolc, and I think predominantly, it's all about connecting with the seasons, with this time of year, connecting with the sensation of hope that winter is coming to an end and that spring is finally going to come. So whatever creates that feeling for you inside, that feeling of hope that things are about to get warmer, then that's what you should be doing for Imbolc. But I'd love to, see your questions here and go through them a little bit. So feel free at this point, if you have questions about Imbolc or really kind of anything pagan related, I'm more than happy to answer them for you guys. Mm. Katie has a great comment. She is saying, I always plant my seeds that will be in my garden in the spring. Yeah, so if the climate allows, planting seeds during Imbolc, great way to celebrate the holiday. Let's see. Clara has a great point here, saying in Celtic tradition, the days and holidays begin at dusk, with Imbolc being on February 2nd, would mean that it starts at dusk the day before and into February 2nd. Yeah, that's true. So it usually starts the night before. So, you don't have to necessarily celebrate on February 2nd. You could celebrate on the evening of February 1st. Let's see. N.E. Goldstein asks, how can you be a heathen as an American if you're not living on the land of your ancestors? For me, I don't necessarily think belief is tied directly to where you live. I think you're still able to honor and celebrate the gods regardless of who your ancestors are or where you live. So that's my personal opinion, which, I mean, I'm American, so like, I kind of have to work with other gods because technically as an American, you could work with the deities of North America, though those are usually part of indigenous tribes and cultures. So those are more closed practices. So since I'm not part of that community or culture, I work with deities that are more open to me. Let's see. I see someone mentions they put the seeds that they're planning on planting later when it gets warmer on their altar to bless them. Yeah, so blessing seeds that you're going to be planting later, that's a great thing to do when, you can't quite plant yet. So yeah, great comment. Kaylee is asking, on Imbolc, can I worship two goddesses? Bridget and Hestia are both hearth goddesses. So I was wondering if I could worship both Bridget, as Bridget's Celtic and Hestia's Greek. Yes, I personally think you can. Of course, everyone has different opinions on that. It's a bit of a more eclectic pagan path, but I do think there is a wide amount of synchronicity among paganism globally. So the concept of a fire goddess or a hearth goddess is something, in my view, innate to the human psyche, innate to the natural world. So whatever variation the hearth goddess comes to you in, whether that's Bridget or whether that's Hestia or Vesta, it's tying to the same essence, that same kind of essential truth. So that's my personal opinion. I mean, for example, there are love goddesses in every single pagan culture. Sure, they might not be exactly the same goddesses, but they're all representing some type of essential truth. So in my view, that's fine. Let's see. I'm just checking your comments here. Let's see. Barbara is asking about the Mayan deities. She's saying that one of her parents works with the Mayan gods, but she knows it's a closed practice. Would I be able to work with them? So I don't know that much about Mayan and Aztec deities, though I definitely want to learn more. So it's tricky to say, honestly. You can ask the community, if you feel uncomfortable, but I'm probably not the best person to give you permission or not give you permission on that. But you can still, of course, do what feels right for you. And, especially just starting to learn about the different Mayan deities. And there's nothing wrong with that for sure. So let me see, what else are you guys saying? Okay. Marcel is asking, what are your thoughts on other pagan other pagan pantheons, such as Slavic or Finnish. Yeah, so, like I said, there are so many different forms of paganism, and a lot of them have these kind of essential truths that they all hit at in different ways. So if you think about let's see, this is a philosophical question, right? Or a theological question, probably both. I like to think about this sometimes in the way that the ancient Greeks thought about Dios, deity, right? So to the ancient Greek conception, God was something, or goddess was something immortal and beyond us as human. So when you take a concept like love is something eternal. It existed before we were born, and it will exist after we were born. And it's something greater than ourselves. It's something we can never fully 100% grasp. It has this divine essence, the concept of love, right? So how do we, as humans, connect with that divine concept of love? Well, from a pagan perspective, we probably want to put it in a visual, in a concept that is easier for us as humans to connect with and understand. So we put it in the image of a goddess who, like us humans, is flawed, a goddess who is eternal, but not perfect. Thus, we're able to both relate to her because she's not so far beyond our understanding, but at the same time, she can both inspire awe, and we'll never fully understand her. We'll never fully understand the true concept, the true essential meaning of love. We try our best, but we're only human, right? So that is some type of essence that ties into our core identity as humans, right? Now, we all feel that across all cultures, around the world, right? So we all have names for a goddess of love. They're all different. They all look different goddesses, different cultures, but it's really kind of that same essential truth that just dressed and in the culture that it's that the people are connecting with it, So I think there are a few concepts that are so eternal and essential to what it means to be human that each culture is going to have their own version of it, but there's a lot more that connects it than divides it. So a Mayan goddess of love, a Greek goddess of love, a Norse goddess of love, in my view, is all different cultural ways to connect with a type of essential truth. That doesn't mean the individual gods themselves don't necessarily have their own personalities and their own stories and their own identities. But that's kind of why I think it doesn't matter too much, which gods or goddesses you're connecting with, because you're connecting with that core essential concept. There's plenty of these things, like war is another thing. It's eternal. It's existed before us. It'll exist after us. And it's beyond our full comprehension, right? And every culture, every pagan culture has a god of war. So that just shows us there's some type of essential truth in that concept. And that god of war and how he appears, what he looks like, is filtered through the lens of the culture. So anyway, that was just a bit of a tangent on who are the gods, I guess. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. But yeah, so, you can pick the pagan path that you feel resonates with you, because we're all hitting at some type of essential truth is kind of my answer to that. Yeah, let's see. Barbara has a great comment. She says, the gods and goddesses are all around us depending on who you are calling upon. They don't reside in any particular area. Let's see. Robert Parker says every culture has witchcraft and divination too. Exactly. Witchcraft, divination, these are something essential to the human experience. But yeah, those are great points. So another thing I wanted to mention too, a while ago, I had mentioned the idea of I wanted to create a Discord for the community, for my Patreon community specifically, since I know you guys are really enjoying these pagan happy hours. So a Discord would be a way to kind of get you guys more involved, allow you guys to chat with each other. And originally, I wasn't able to start up a Discord and run it because I'm kind of a one-woman show. I do everything on my own for my YouTube. But it's something that I really wanted to do, and I know you guys have been really interested in it. So I actually recently hired someone, so I'm going to be working with someone to help me run and moderate the Discord. So I haven't started it yet. I just wanted to give you a little sneak peek that is something I am working on building for my patrons. So I'll keep you updated on that because I want to continue to grow this community and allow you guys to share and connect with each other. So that's really exciting. Another thing I wanted to ask you guys too, so I've been thinking about my next video topic. I usually do my videos 1 week in advance. So I've already completed my video that's going to be out next Wednesday, which will be about how to bring paganism and witchcraft into your kitchen, or how to use your kitchen in your pagan practice. But the following week, I wanted to do a bit of a kind of a fun history video. So let me know your thoughts on this idea. I was thinking about doing a video called something like Witchcraft Through the Ages, and then picking a decade. And I was thinking about starting with the 90s, because that's the decade of witchcraft that I'm personally most familiar with, because that's when I became introduced to witchcraft, and then going over the pop culture witchcraft that was occurring in the 90s, the books that came out, and the movement. What was the witchcraft and the pagan movement like in the 90s? And then if that series, you guys like it, then maybe I'll do like a Witchcraft Through the Ages, the 80s, and then I could talk about like the Satanic Panic and like what the witchcraft movement was like in the 80s. Let me know if you're interested in that idea. It's just something that came to me, and it'll take a bit of research, so I wanted to check with you guys first that you liked that idea. And I think it could definitely be a fun one. Let me see. Yeah, it seems like you guys checking the comments do like that idea. Moni is commenting, oh, I think the 40s would be really interesting, and also the 10s and 20s with the rise of spiritualism. Yeah, there's so many decades I could do. Each have their own kind of flavor of a witchcraft, or they each brought something new to the witchcraft movement. So yeah, I think that could be a fun topic and maybe a series eventually for my channel. Yeah, so thank you guys so much for joining me for Pagan Happy Hour. This has been a really fun one. I want to wish you all the best too for Imbolc this year, if you're going to be celebrating, or even if you're not going to be celebrating. This is a really good time of year. I'm at least feeling some of that energy that comes with the increasing of the sun's light. So I'm so honored and happy to be able to spend this time with you all. And I really do enjoy these live chats. I look forward to them all week. And thank you so much for attending. If you did like this, please give it a like. Please share it with others. And thank you all so much for watching. I want to wish you a wonderful weekend, a wonderful Imbolc, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.